everyone. Hi. Welcome to
Topical Juice.
Topical Juice.
Topical Juice.
This is actually our first ever episode, which is very exciting.
Crazy.
So before I introduce my guest, who you can already hear, I thought I'd tell you a bit about myself. So hi, my name's Savannah or Sav. My pronouns are she, her, and I am this year's anti-racism officer. Not officer on the SU.
Yeah.
I was born in England, but my family are from Jamaica, and I am on the musical theatre course, and I think that's all you need to know right now.
Yeah.
And I am joined with the amazing, the wonderful, the terrific Chyna-Rose. Chyna-Rose, tell the people them a bit about you.
I'm Chyna-Rose, and I'm Chyna-Rose. Who am I? My pronouns are she, her, and I am a third year at Mount View. I'm about to go into rehearsals for Little Night Music next week.
Oh my gosh.
Come and catch it. Come and watch us, please.
Yes, plug the show. Come and watch.
Please.
If you want to see talent, go and watch this year's third years because they are insane.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Curtis Brown.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Conway Van Gogh. Imagine I actually see this.
I'm talking to you, Independent.
Talking to you, United. Today, we are going to kick off this entire podcast by talking about being black and neurodivergent.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about being black and neurodivergent, which is a topic that does not get discussed nearly enough, which is why I thought I'd start with it, because although it's a very tiny demographic of people that I'll be talking about, especially at Mount View, for obvious reasons, I feel like those people deserve to be heard. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'll kick it off, I guess, by telling my tale of how I realised I was neurodivergent, which is very recently, probably not fully until I came to Mount View actually, but I have got ADHD and I am in the process of getting officially diagnosed with autism. I'm not one to self-diagnose, but there are a lot of pointers that
Just a few.
just several pointers that turn towards yes, which I'll get into in a minute. But first of all, being a neurodivergent girl is so difficult, especially when all research seems to be done off little boys.
Yes.
And their special interests. And if you don't meet those interests, or you don't act like somebody's autistic 4-year-old who is train obsessed, then there's no way you could be on the same spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, I found difficult because my whole life I thought I was just crazy, and it turns out that there was help that I could have got that I didn't. But it wasn't until I came to Mount View where somebody actually took the time, took longer than 30 seconds to actually look at what my personality is. And then I got assessed and I was told that I have ADHD, which, to be honest, explains a lot of things. Doesn't explain everything, which is why I'm also getting seen for autism. But it's a huge sigh of relief to know that there's not something just wrong with me and that I'm... there are other people like me, and there's a reason why, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Chyna, why don't you go now?
First of all, kudos to Mount View for getting so many people the ability to get tested and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at least from my experience, not just dismissing anyone,
Mm-hmm.
and actually taking the time to help people's situations. Mine is quite straightforward. I got an ADHD test and then I had ADHD. That's the story. On paper, I have ADD, but that is a term that is technically not used anymore, and there's a lot of specifics around it, and there's also other things that I'm trying to get tested for. So I just say I'm neurodivergent because what else can I say? It's also not about the label. It's just about saying, okay, I'm able to identify these things about myself. How can identifying these things benefit me in the future? And that's all that it is for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tea.
That is the tea. I feel like, for me, like, as per usual, the black experience with anything is slightly different because people are a lot less willing to be understanding towards you, whether or not that's a conscious bias, I guess, people have or not. People don't really... People always think that being neurodivergent looks a certain way, and that's not even just a case of like, oh, I go to like an only white doctor and they don't take me serious. To be honest, it's also within the black community. A lot of people don't take it seriously, or they think that it's something you'll grow out of, or they think it's a thing that black people can't have or black people can't get.
I feel like one before.
Yeah, I feel like the most damaging part of being black and neurodivergent, in my opinion, is actually within the community. And I'm really lucky that I have like at least some family who are willing to do their research or even get tested themselves. But I know a lot of people aren't that lucky, and I work with kids a lot, and I've seen it time and time again. You kind of pick up on when a child is neurodivergent, and a majority of the time it is black parents and black families who kind of don't want to know, don't want to hear about it, just think their kid will grow out of it, and it's really damaging. It will also be very traumatic to the child. He will grow up without having their needs met.
Yeah, and like also in my case, I'm the opposite of in terms of like, I don't have people in my family who have done research or have even read my my report, or have tried to get tested themselves, because they should. If you're listening to it, get tested because you have it, because I have it and I know. Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of things, like, I can't speak for every black person, I can just speak from my experiences, but a lot of things are just rooted in like culture and religion. And I hear a lot of things of like, if I struggle to do certain things, like if I struggle with certain executive functions that most people can just do on a daily basis, if I communicate that to people and say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing in my family, I'll probably be met with, well, back in my day, I didn't have phones, so you can't struggle. Go walk and grab water.
You caught the autism through your phone, you freak. Yeah. Literally, you did it yourself. Or they'll be like, in my day, we didn't have autism. And it's like, there's a whole generation of people who find therapy and counselling and help embarrassing. And they are the generation that have kids and then just do the most damage. And unfortunately, that damaged generation is us.
You know, I spoke to someone who is like Generation X, probably. And they are a black man, and I had a conversation with them, and it just kind of summed up the belief that so many people have. And they had a close family member pass away, and I was asking them how they felt about it, how they were coping, and their response was, I haven't cried because I'm a man and I don't need to cry. Women cry because of hormones. Because remember, kids, only women have hormones. Exactly. But as a man, I don't need to cry. I will just deal with my situation by working more. And I was like, wow. That's the sort of thing you hear in movies or you hear on alpha male podcasts.
Yeah, looking at you, Andrew Tate.
That's what you hear on Sneako's channel.
Literally. But my thing is, that kind of outlook is so dangerous, and it is, the thing is, I feel like the discussion, this is so off topic, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway, the discussion about like the patriarchy and how society is, I feel like people don't bring up the fact that it screws women over in more ways that you can count. It also screws men over as well. The very same society that the people before them built, it was never gonna work. Not even in terms of like women having to fight for basic rights, women still having to fight for basic rights, but the way men were always meant to be perceived as like strong and emotionless, of course it's gonna screw them over in the long run. And you've literally got statistics to back it, that men are also not benefiting from this patriarchy as much as they think they are.
No.
because it's stressing them out and it's leading to some very bad stuff that are constantly brought up in arguments that don't need to be brought up. But I digress. The point is, there's a whole generation that took help, and getting help from other human beings made it embarrassing, and then the damage is done, and now people deny all sorts of like mental conditions, be it mental illness or be it neurodivergency. It's like, especially in Black communities, it's very much seen as like taboo. And
I think part of the thing that makes it so difficult for me is that whatever my, like, however neurodivergent I am, I have been able to, like, I guess survive for 20 years, nearly 21 years, and be okay, I guess. I'm reluctant to say okay, but, you know, I've been okay. But I think the most difficult thing for me is that communicating with my family and communicating with a lot of Black people, like, older than our generation, is just so difficult. And because they're so set in their ways of what they've been taught and how their parents have raised them, which is a whole nother issue, it has an effect on, like, this future generation, because I find it so difficult to be able to communicate these little things. Like, only a number of family members know that I am neurodivergent, because some of them wouldn't even be able to comprehend, like, the words that I'm telling them. Like you said, Sav, like, people have such an idea of what autism looks like, and they're like, well, you're not obsessed with fire trucks, you're not autistic. You're wrong. That has been, for my childhood, the most frustrating thing, because anybody who's listening to this, who knows me, a conversation I have with a lot of people is, how did no one know? How did nobody know? How did nobody pick up on it? Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not somebody who should have flown under the radar the way I did. I'm not even gonna, the way I act now, I'm slowly starting to unmask more and more, because now that I know kind of what's going on, I can be a lot less apologetic about it. But when I was a kid and I had no filter and no idea what masking was, boy, my primary school should have taken one look at me and just on the spot said, right, because it's little things like this, right? Obviously, there's an angry Black girl stereotype that's been here since the dawn of day. And when I was little, I had a lot of stuff going on that meant that I needed anger management. So I'm put in a group with all the little boys with ADHD. I'm displaying the exact same behaviour as them. And they've all been able to walk out of primary school with a diagnosis. But for me, it's just what I'm quirky. Just built different, I
guess. Like, or I think also with neurodivergent girls, they forget that the A in ADHD is attention. And that doesn't just mean seeking attention. It does mean not paying attention. So when I'm sat there spaced out in class, it's not, she's a daydreamer. It's, she's gone. She's gone. It's just little things like that throughout my childhood. The way I used to, like, line up my toys, things I used to obsess over, textures I used to be upset over, foods that I wouldn't eat, all of this. I should have been diagnosed ages ago, and now that I'm an adult, I'm not going to get any sort of diagnosis until I'm like 24 because of how long the wait is.
The waiting list is, like, for anyone listening that might want to know, the waiting list is about 2 years, and then it's like a year-long process.
It's 2 years to get started. It's 2 years to get started.
To get the ball rolling.
And then it's probably like another year.
The ball rolls for 3 years.
It's a year-long process, and then another bloody year probably for results. But, like, it's just very frustrating because it's so much easier to get diagnosed as a kid, and if you're not a stereotype, then people aren't going to take you serious. Or if you're not what's perceived in the media, because I feel like all autistic or neurodivergent characters that are perceived in the media are
wackadoodle.
White men A, and B, like, white men A, B are like all the same, like math obsessed, train obsessed, like over the top characters, and see a lot of the time they're never explicitly said that they're neurodivergent, so that people can make fun of them.
It would just be so much
like Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory.
Exactly. And it would literally be so helpful to have a character who's presented positively,
yeah,
where their neurodivergency isn't their only character trait.
Yeah.
But they're like, hey, I do have this, just so you know, this character does have it.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of people... Do you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No.
No. But I see a lot of people, for anyone that watches Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Jake from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, tell me he does not have ADHD. Like, literally go on YouTube and search Jake Peralta ADHD. He exhibits literally all the symptoms. And it's so nice that he's literally a protagonist and like, well, basically everyone loves him. And like, his ADHD symptoms are just a part of his character. It's not like a negative thing. But think about how much good it would do for him to be like, oh, this is a character who has ADHD, like, just so everyone knows.
Exactly.
That would be so helpful for so many people.
Because also, I feel like we're now in a time where being neurodivergent, a lot of people are now exploring it. And a lot of people are, like, more willing to come to terms with it or test with it. So if we could start having more media where it's portrayed in a better light than just being made fun of, I feel like even if families sit down and watch stuff together, like, I feel like it would get the ball rolling for people to be even more willing to test and to live an easier life, because it's hard living for so long being undiagnosed and being like, what's wrong with me? And then right now knowing there's something wrong but having to wait for a doctor to tell you. Not something wrong, that's the wrong wording, but there's something there, I should say.
Something different, I guess, for most people.
Something quirky.
Here are some final thoughts on the matter.
We're going to wrap up here, but for just some...
Sorry, I didn't even think. Oh my gosh.
Okay, we're going to start here. Okay, so just to wrap up, because we're going to have to wrap it up here, I'd say for some final thoughts is that neurodivergent stereotypes are very harmful, especially when it gets in the way of how it's assessed and who it's based on. I've been in positions where people who are actual professionals have told me that they don't understand why I haven't been diagnosed. And I've also been in positions where I've had people kind of come up to me and say that I don't act like somebody else they know with the same condition, even if it's on the spectrum. And that for me is very frustrating, because it's not progressive and it doesn't help me, because at the end of the day, we're not talking about your 5-year-old nephew. You're talking about me, a 20-year-old woman.
Huzzah.
Chyna.
I would like to say, if there's anyone who wants to have a conversation about being neurodivergent or anything like that, first of all, if you're in the Mount View building, come and talk to Sav. She's there to help.
She is, but also talk to our disability officer, Alfie Jones. He's absolutely lovely. I'd recommend talking to him.
And also just know that you're not weird.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Just and if you're in an environment where people don't necessarily take you seriously, or people aren't giving you what you need, just know that there are so many people out there that are willing to help, like us.
Yes.
But don't talk to me. I'll be scared. Talk to Sam.
I will also be scared. But
we'll both be scared, because we're what? Neurodivergent. Yay. Jingle.
But also, wait, just final thing. Just because you perhaps don't act in a societal norm, that doesn't mean that you have to be normal, I guess. That doesn't mean anything. Like, just because you don't act the way everyone else wants you to act, you don't have to mask. You can be yourself unapologetically. Yes.